to provide you with the latest information on this incident. I want to introduce on my left Sheriff Jeff Dean. Excuse me. He's the Sheriff of Ventura County. Name is spelled G-E-O-F-F. Last name is spelled D-E-A-N. On my right is Ryan Young. He's a special agent in charge of the Los Angeles Field Office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. His name is spelled R-Y-A-N. Last name is Y-O-U-N-G. Also on my right is L.D. Maples. He's the chief of the Coastal Division of the California Highway Patrol. First name is spelled L.D. Last name Maples, M-A-P-L-E-S. So right now I'm going to hand it over to Sheriff Dean to give you the latest.
Good morning. You're all experienced reporters, and you understand this is a dynamic, ongoing investigation in a tragic situation. So I'll go through the details. I'll share with you everything I have, and we'll answer all the questions you may have. Our partners from the FBI and the Highway Patrol will also answer any additional questions you might have. Tonight at 11:20 p.m., Sheriff's 911 received multiple calls of shots being fired at the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks. Our first sheriff's unit arrived on scene. 3 minutes later, there was also 2 Highway Patrol officers on scene who had been on a local traffic stop and heard the traffic and responded right away. Approximately 3 minutes later, a Highway Patrol officer and a Sheriff Sergeant made entry into the borderline because they heard shots being fired and felt there might be additional victims inside. Upon going through the front door, the Sheriff Sergeant was struck multiple times with gunfire. A Highway Patrol officer stepped back and secured the perimeter until additional units arrived, and he rescued the Sheriff Sergeant out of the line of gunfire. When additional units arrived, including SWAT personnel, agencies from the Oxnard Police Department, the Simi Valley Police Department, the Ventura Police Department, and additional officers from the Highway Patrol, they made entry into the Borderline Bar and Grill. They found 11 victims that had been killed. The suspect, who we believe was the only suspect, was dead inside. And there were multiple other victims of different levels of injury inside that were rescued from the scene and taken to local hospitals. In addition to the victims inside, and the numbers are upwards of 10 to 12, additional victims with minor injuries fled the scene on their own and took themselves to local hospitals. We have not identified the suspect yet. Our partners from the FBI were on scene almost immediately to help us with identification process and with crime scene processing. We have no idea if there is a terrorism link to this event or not. As you know, these are ongoing investigations, and that information will come out as soon as we're able to determine exactly who the suspect was and what motive he might have had for this horrific event. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Why do you think it might be terrorism? Why did you bring that up?
Well, the Sergeant Hillis died at the the sergeant passed away at the hospital about an hour. I only mentioned it might be terrorist because that's where we all go these days when we have multiple shootings like this. There's no reason for it, and we have this horrific death. I have nothing to lead me to believe, or the FBI, that there is any terrorism link here, but we certainly will look at that option.
Were there other devices inside? Or
I'm sorry?
Devices inside?
What do you mean by devices?
Reports that there was people thought there were smoke bombs that were going off.
There's some initial reports that a smoke bomb might have been used. We have not found anything yet. We have called in our bomb team to go in through, and we have a couple bomb dogs here that are checking the area, but we haven't found any other explosive device or confirmation that there was a smoke device.
What kind of weapon make you think if there was a smoke device?
Hindsight and speculation is pretty easy. You would think if someone throws a smoke device that it was certainly more of a planned attack and not something spontaneous.
The sergeant, how long was he on the force? Anything about him?
Sergeant Hillis was on the force for 29 years, was looking to retire in the next year or so. He was a Moore Park resident and is survived by his wife and his son.
What is his name?
Ron Hillis, H-E-L-U-S.
What kind of weapon was it?
Well, the question is, Thousand Oaks is a safe community. What do I make of this? I make that it's a horrific incident. It's part of the horrors that are happening in our country and everywhere. And I think it's impossible to put any logic or any sense to the senseless.
Sheriff,
How
did
did
the
the
suspect
suspect
shoot it out
yeah.
with officers, or did he take his own life?
What, when the officers made entry, the suspect was already deceased.
Do you know who killed him?
There were 11 victims. I will not count the suspect as a victim. The suspect, and then Sergeant Hillis.
So 11 victims.
Counting the sergeant.
11 victims. The suspect is 12, and Sergeant Hillis makes 13.
Have you identified the name of the victim?
No, we have not.
What about the weapon? Was this a semi-automatic? Did you find a weapon?
We have not found any type of assault rifle inside the location. The only weapon we have found that we believe was used was a handgun, but it's still early on and we haven't gone through the scene in detail yet.
Do you know the approximate ages of the victims?
It would appear that way, but it's certainly well too early to know if he actually did take his own life.
Approximate ages?
People know the name of the victims?
Well, certainly, we have to wait for the medical examiner to get here. We have to do family notification, so candidly, it'll be hours and hours.
Do you know
What
if
about
the suspect
ages?
has visited this bar before? Has anybody said it?
We don't know anything about the suspect. We haven't talked to anybody that had any contact with him
Do you know if
prior.
he lives here?
Well, I actually have no idea who he is. We don't know anything about him yet.
What about the ages of the victims? The ages of the victims. Can you tell us that they were young?
I actually don't know what the ages were. It is a nightclub, so I would, speculate they were probably in the 21 to 26-year-old age group.
Can you talk about if active shooter training played a role in the sergeant, going in and trying to confront the suspect immediately?
There's no doubt that the change in how we handle active shooters played a role. Sergeant Hillis and the Highway Patrol officer first on scene, they knew they had to take action, and they went in and did what they had to do. Yes, 13. We don't know how many are injured because they went to separate hospitals. I'm going to speculate, given what I've heard, somewhere between 10 and 15 additional injuries. And we don't know, we don't believe there might be one additional gunshot victim, but we think there are other injuries, people trying to escape, breaking out windows and doing different things.
When you see these shootings happen across the country, did you ever think that it would happen right here?
I've been a cop for 41 years, and I never thought I would see the things around the country that would happen, but I've learned it doesn't matter what community you're in, it doesn't matter how safe your community is, it can happen anywhere. Because obviously for someone to do this, they have to have some sort of mental illness, and sadly we have people with mental illness all over the country.
Sheriff, were there any threats to anybody in the bar? Any indications that this could happen?
I have actually no information about that at all. But again, we're very early on in the investigation.
You know what happened? We heard that he went inside, shot the security guard, and then kind of when he started shooting, that was happening. Did you walk us through?
We actually don't know. I mean, we're interviewing multiple witnesses, but I can say no, but we haven't got everybody together yet to really put that timeline together, and we'll certainly provide that as soon as we can get something. It's so tragic, and losing Ron, we go to the gym together, work out together, is horrific and terrible, and it saddens our heart. But there's also parents of those 11 other victims in there whose hearts are ripped out tonight. And I know there's parents wondering, oh my gosh, what was one of my children in there, or was it my sister or my brother? So there's just no way to describe this. It saddens us all, and it tears at our hearts and emotions, as it should. And if we ever get to the point where it doesn't, then there's something wrong with us.
Sheriff, can you talk about after conflict? There's a lot of questions about police not being active enough, and it does sound like your sergeant really was proactive. What was the thought process in the department after conflict? How it has changed?
Actually, it changed for us after Columbine, years and years ago, and we trained with our fire department for active shooting, and our officers know when you get to a scene and there's two of you, or even just one of you, and there's shooting going on, you go in. And that's a change of philosophy, what it used to be. And we worked so well in our county. The Ohio Patrol was here. When they made entry the second time tonight, there were Simi Valley officers, there were Oxnard officers, there were Ventura officers, there were sheriff's deputies, and there were Ohio Patrol officers. Everyone comes together to solve the problem.
And just a clarification of time, from the moment that the first contact was made by police to the moment that the second contact was made by police, what was the time?
So the time frame, the first deputies arrived on scene at 11:22. They made entry approximately 4 minutes later. That's when Sergeant Hillis was shot. And it was, and I don't have the exact timeline, it was probably close to 15 minutes. They didn't hear any shots fired before they regrouped, got additional officers, and went back in. And there were people hiding in restrooms, there were people hiding in attics. I have no idea.
Sheriff, what other scenes are you and your law enforcement partners investigating in relation to what happened here?
What other
locations?
None that I know of, but certainly when we find out who the suspect is, we'll go to his location and we'll work with our bureau partners to see if there's a connection there. But at this time, there's none other that I know of.
Was the suspect armed with multiple weapons, or was it just
Right now, as far as we know, there was only one handgun, but that could certainly change as we do a more thorough search of the building.
Can you clarify? You said the suspect was down when authorities entered the building.
The suspect was down with a gunshot wound when the officers went into the building. Yes.
And the deputy was shot by the suspect.
We don't know who shot the deputy.
And
What about
the
the age of the
suspect?
We don't know who shot anybody at this point.
When you describe the suspect, age,
I probably shouldn't comment on that at this time.
The age, even just an age.
It would be a total guess. It's a horrific scene in there. There is blood everywhere, and the suspect is part of that. And I didn't want to get that close and disturb the scene and possibly jeopardize the investigation.
Based on people who were trapped inside, did they talk about and then talk to witnesses? Did they say they were?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Did the witnesses say they were trapped inside for what was their reaction? Did they describe what happened to you?
They're being interviewed by our by our investigators. I honestly don't know exactly what they said at this point. I wanted to get out information as soon as I could to you, and we'll continue to follow up.
the killer said.
I have no idea what happened inside there. Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Is there a message you want to send to the case family?
I've met with them and talked to them. We spent time. I made sure I talked to them before we released the name.
When can we get another update with everything that's going on?
Well, by the time, I would say, an hour and a half maybe. I don't want to waste your time and have you come up and I don't have anything. If we can get information about what the witnesses said inside or any additional on the suspect, we'll have our PIOs let you know. But I don't want to waste your time by bringing you if we don't have anything new.
How many mass shootings have you had in the county in the last years? Or this is the first one in the county? Mass shooting like this?
Mass shoot? I don't remember in my 41 years having a mass shooting.
Sheriff, what would you like us to know about the sergeant? What should everyone know about him?
Ron was a hard-working, dedicated sheriff sergeant. He was totally committed. He gave his all, and tonight, as I told his wife, he died a hero because he went he went in to save lives, to save other people.
Sheriff, one question here. And for those parents relatives, friends, what should they do?
I believe we have a victims hotline, and the PIOs will give you the victims hotline number where they can call to check and just make sure.
And where were they transported? Were they all transported to one place? The injured?
They went to multiple hospitals.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So real quick, that hotline number for people to call is area code 805-465-6650.